it's exciting to know that they can have a team. They get to know these people. It's the same people every time. They're not going to Fiverr and getting somebody starting the project and somebody else ending it. That happens sometimes.
Sure, yeah.
So,
well, I mean, Fiverr, you're getting what you pay for,
Right. And again, I think there is great talent to be had, on all these platforms. You just, how much better is it to say, Steve, I need a copywriter. Hey, I got 3 that I could hook you up with. They're all amazing.
Right.
You need a voiceover person. Hey, I know Jim. This is the way it works.
I am the voiceover person.
Here
in Middle Tennessee.
That's right. You changed your name to Jim A.I. McCarthy, right? So
the real Jim McCarthy. Should I go with that moniker?
Yeah, there you go.
Like a lot of these,
I see that a lot.
Social gurus.
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York, Middle Tennessee, it says here. Sounds riveting.
It is.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals.
Mostly. Oh, yeah. As always, thank you, Jim. I almost said John David Wells, a little bit of a throwback to the What's Your Problem days. Mr. Matt Wilson and the Mostly Marketing Podcast. Check him out. Just Google it. You'll be able to find it. And I might have borrowed a little bit of his name to put it into our new name, the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals about the things that they go through every single day in business, the challenges, the triumphs. There's a lot of talent here in Middle Tennessee, and that's why we created this podcast, to kind of get them in front of you and talk about this stuff. Check us out. This is a video and audio podcast. You can check us out at MMTBP.com. That's MMTBP.com. I am your host, Jim McCarthy, with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com. And it's your show.co, where you can get podcasts like this. Working on our studio to be a little bit more client-friendly. And today, you're in for a treat because we've got a creative maven, Mr. Steve Lomas, sir. How are you?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Pull that mic just a little bit closer if you would. There you go.
Is this close enough?
There you go.
Okay.
So you and I have a lot of similarities in backgrounds. You were in the broadcasting world and content creation fields for a number of years, just like me, correct?
Very much so. Right. My whole career.
Your whole career.
Yeah.
Because you and I had a long conversation probably about a month ago.
Yeah.
Talking about we were sharing war stories.
It's crazy. Yeah. 40 years.
40 years.
Yeah. Started out in Los Angeles, film and television, and kind of followed the whole trend with digital.
Right.
And computer graphics, and was doing broadcast graphics, and ultimately that led to game design, and from game design that led to web, and here we are today.
So if you're a creative here in Nashville, you're in for a treat, because we're going to talk about all those things, especially how the landscape has changed here in Nashville, but not just Nashville, but the rest of the country, the world. I mean, it's with AI, with all the different automation tools that you have out there, there's a lot going on,
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I'm still a newbie, I've only been here 22 years now.
Are you a native yet? Or, I mean, when do they consider us to be natives?
I don't know, but I guess I think I've passed the threshold of proving at least that I'm committed.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I love
should
it
be
here.
Committed.
Yeah, I mean, that too, probably.
This business can do that to you.
Yeah. So a little. Where do you want to go?
Well, I mean, tell me about how everything started for you. Essentially what we talked about in our conversation on the phone.
Sure. So
what got you into everything?
Thanks. So, picking up on that arc after gaming and the web and whatnot, we moved here, and I threw out a shingle for a design agency. This is our 21st year. And it was a digital agency. It's Mojo Media Pros. And in 2019, we started getting the idea of, let's maybe doing something different. I don't know if you know David C. Baker here in town, but he's international pull. The guy's got a lot of marketing clients all over the world. And we contracted with him to just kind of figure out what's next for Mojo. And really what came out of that was this idea of doing a creative staffing agency, largely because that's the way we have operated Mojo for the last 20 years. 100% freelance, 100% remote, and lots of freelance talent. And what came out of that brainstorming session was this idea of doing something a little different, like a spin out. And ultimately, so that was at the end of 2019, the story, the beginning of 2020, we hit the ground running with this concept. We came up with the name, The Roster, came up with the logo and the branding, filed the trademark, boom, the lockdown.
Nice.
And so from there, we just said, let's put this aside, figure out what's going on. 21, we built the website. 22, we got serious about launching it, as the dust started settling. And at the end of 22, we launched it, and it's very exciting. So I still have Mojo Media Pros, but the roster allows me to represent a lot more talent. I'm kind of addicted to, great talent, getting to know talent, and putting teams together. I mean, that's what I've done my whole career.
What kind of talent do you really enjoy? There's on-camera talent, there's behind-the-camera talent, editors.
Right. You're kind of coming at it from production, which I relate to because of my film and TV background. But we take a pretty broad stroke at the concept of creative. Right. So I've led a lot of development projects. I think I've had over 1,200 developers roll up to me at one time or another. And so we do sort of two main areas. Everything that you would consider for marketing, which is graphics, design, copywriting, video, photography, all those things. And then we also have another niche, which is product development. So that would be UX, UI design, Scrum Masters, business analysts, and developers. And we have we've associated with some really great development partners. And, I think now, because of those agency partnerships and everybody else we've been gathering, I think well over 1,500 people, in the roster, right. Which is fun, So.
Now I kind of put myself out there as a voice talent.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
You in that space.
You think? Yeah. You're kind of a voice talent, yeah.
A little bit. I've been told. I might have a knack for it.
Yeah.
I've been doing it since 1997, 98.
Absolutely. So. No, you're an amazing voice.
A lot of my voiceover people that are in my audience, you'll probably be inundated. Because a lot of these people are always looking, another agency I could send my demo to.
Wide open. It's actually easy. The roster.agency/talent. And
so you're always looking for new talent?
Always.
Yeah, because you kind of put me right on. That's which I appreciate.
Yeah, look, there's something slightly elitist about the roster and the name, right? Yeah. And also we mean that we're really just looking for professional freelancers or solopreneurs, people who are serious about this. Yeah, we have a few people that are moonlighting because they used to be freelancers. We knew them. We've worked with them. Really, the roster talent pool started with the freelancers that we have been working with for over 20 years. And then if you consider that the pebble in the pond, right? The ripples are their friends, their associates. So the whole talent pool, and this is what I think separates us from everybody else, is vetted by the community itself. These are people, I can connect the dots, even 3-4 ripples out. I can connect the dots to exactly how we got to that individual and why they were referred to us and by whom.
And I was referred to you by Mrs. Amanda Banks.
Yes.
She knows everyone. Everyone knows Amanda.
That's right. She's a dynamo and a good friend. Has been for a long time. She invited me to do the TEDx Old Hickory last year. It was a super fun project. She killed herself getting that done. Did an amazing job as the host and license holder, and we're doing it again.
That's not an easy task, man.
No.
I mean, event production and putting that stuff on. My goodness.
Yeah, it was our first working together. The team really knitted. As I said, we're doing it again September 19th of 24.
My business partner applied. Yeah. She met him, and you were talking about hearing the last episode that he was on.
Right.
He, not like he was in his shell, but I always called him the reluctant social entrepreneur. And he never wanted to put stuff about business out on social media. If he did, he kind of did it begrudgingly. Mm-hmm. But he's one of those guys I'm like, dude, you've got a God-given talent. And you need to share it with the world.
I heard that episode. Obviously, I follow and support Amanda, and I did hear that. Guy is spot on.
He's got a head on his shoulders.
Yeah, no doubt. John, right?
John, yes, sir. So what is it you're moving forward, just building this thing up, and what are the projects you're looking to get into?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. We've done some lot of healthcare lately, as you might expect here in Nashville. One of the things that's really exciting is maybe I should try to differentiate. People, what is that, a marketplace? It's not a marketplace. If you think of Fiverr, Upwork, myguru.com, thousands, tens of thousands, I haven't counted, lots of, I'm not saying there isn't great talent out there. There's talent.
Sure.
But if you're trying to put together a talent for a project, it's your responsibility to go out there and vet how many, dozens, hundreds, whatever. And then let's say you find somebody and you go like, that person looks good. Is it their work? I don't know.
Right.
Are they going to show up? Will they deliver on time? It's the human aspects of, creating a team that really drive the success. Yeah. Right. It's like, people always are surprised when I say like, I'm not sure that talent is even really much of a factor. And they go, what are you talking about? I go, well, I wouldn't be talking to you if you weren't any good. You've been referred to us. I already know you're good.
Yeah.
The thing I'm looking for is, are they reliable? Are they going to be professional? Raise a hand when things are going sideways, as opposed to pretending there's not a problem because they don't want to let anybody know they're human.
Right.
So those are the things. And so what's really exciting for us, if you think about, so let's say you go out and manage freelancers. It's a lot of work to manage freelancers. We provide a consistent platform. Yeah. We bring the freelancers into a bench for you. You have a team. You know what it costs to assemble a team through the roster? $0.
Right.
You're only paying people when they're working for you, but we work with you to curate that team so that when you say, oh my gosh, my boss just dropped this project on me, it's due Friday, you're not thinking about how to get to those people. You're sending a message out. We give everybody a base camp.
Right.
And then they go, hey, we've got this project coming up. It's like everything's already the contracting and everything's done. It's just, do you have work? Yes, I do. I'm available. I'm not available. It's a very short, and this is the way we worked Mojo for 20 and continue to work Mojo. We have that pool. And when we raise a hand to say, hey, we got this project. Are you available? Yeah. Okay, great. Let's talk this afternoon. You can't do that when you go out to try to hire somebody. And why would you hire somebody on a project basis? Right. Like, if you're going to hire them as an employee, that's a long-term commitment. Most people make that commit seriously. So when you have spikes in your needs, capacity, and the capacity is the people you have, and the demand is how many projects you got to get done. You always want to make sure your capacity is below your demand. Otherwise, you're, as I like to say, feeding birds in a nest. Like you're trying to keep those open mouths, full. So anyway, this is what's exciting for us because, especially in the startup world, we do a lot of SaaS startup. It's exciting to know that they can have a team. They get to know these people. It's the same people every time. They're not going to Fiverr and getting somebody starting the project and somebody else ending it. That happens sometimes.
Sure, yeah.
So,
well, Fiverr, you're getting what you pay for,
Right. And again, I think there is great talent to be had, on all these platforms. You just, how much better is it to say, Steve, I need a copywriter. Hey, I got 3 that I could hook you up with. They're all amazing.
Right.
You need a voiceover person. Hey, I know Jim. This is the way it works.
I am the voiceover person.
Here
in Middle Tennessee.
That's right. You changed your name to Jim A.I. McCarthy, right? So
the real Jim McCarthy. Should I go with that moniker?
Yeah, there you go.
Like a lot of these,
I see that a lot.
Social gurus.
As opposed to the one who's not real.
Hey, Middle Tennessee electricians, handy women and men, and just those of you needing better commercial LED lighting solutions. Yeah, I know, there's so many of you. I have to tell you, there's another option than just the big orange and blue box stores now. Try j2lighting.com. At j2lighting.com, we have the latest technology in all types of commercial LED lighting, from UFO high base, drawers, area lights, and shoeboxes, right on down to a slimline wall pack that doesn't look like a fist coming off the wall like most other wall packs do. You get what I'm saying, right? Many of our fixtures are wattage and color temperature selectable, which means you have more control over the brightness and appearance in your dark spaces. Check us out at j2lighting.com for a great local source for your commercial LED lighting ideas, even full color light show dreams. Yeah, totally. That's the letter J and number 2 lighting.com. j2lighting.com. Getting back to John, we had to come up for his, he's put himself out there. To his credit, he's rebuilding his LinkedIn. We got him. He's got an Instagram page, which is amazing for him. And he was like, well, I have an interesting last name. It's not Warner. It's Woerner, but it's pronounced like Warner.
Right. Yeah.
And I said, well, maybe that's a kind of an interesting hook. So we actually went with the real John Warner, or real John Warner, I believe.
So when I heard you mention the reluctant social entrepreneur, I thought, well, there's a cool name. That's his brand, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't. You were just being.
I'm just being forced to do this, guys.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But I mean, with all the talent that's out there, there's a lot of people. I get hit up at least once a week from somebody who, hey, I've always wanted to try voiceover. All right. I've always been told that I have a good voice. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that I'm like, yeah, that's not all you need, though. You need
a starting point.
That's a starting point, because, I mean, even Gilbert Gottfried made bank with not a, quote, good voice.
That's right.
He knew how to use it. Bob Dylan, exactly.
Yeah.
They knew how to use it. They understood what in their voice was marketable. Could they be a ham? What's your ham factor? So is your talent kind of like filled up at this point in your roster?
Well, so
you're still looking?
It's early days for us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we just finished our first complete year, and we're, to be honest, still figuring out a lot of this. And but this idea of building deep benches for startup companies is really, catching fire. We think that's really cool, because it's about frictionless connections to vetted talent that that somebody has said, these are people that are great to work with, not just good.
Yeah.
We had a friend and a client this week, and I put a couple of folks together. Said, these people are going to be great. And then he comes back and he's surprised. He goes, these people are amazing.
Yeah. Good.
Well, what did you think? Well, I know you, but I thought, some of that's hyperbole maybe. And he said, everything you said they were. I go, thank you.
That's all you need to hear, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's with a lot of people, again, getting out to the talent pool out there, there's so many people that want to onboard. What would you say to them before they get to your level, before submitting something to you? 10,000 hours kind of thing?
By onboarding, you mean like young in their career and trying to figure it out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, we have like, for example, we do a weekly talent showcase where we put out a video every week of our talent. We're doing this for, I don't know, 9 months into this or whatever. And the person this week is a young designer from Eastern Europe that reached out to us, and I was just blown away by the quality of his work. So it's not about how long you've been doing it. Some people just have that innate ability, right? Yeah. There's still things for them maybe to figure out on a professionalism, level. Yeah. But when you see that innate talent, I love developing talent. So we will often try to put together junior talent. We have junior talent because you don't want a lot of our talents at the top of the mark in terms of their rates. That's an interesting point, by the way. That doesn't always mean that they're the most expensive. You get where I'm going with that, right?
Yeah.
If a person who's making half again as much money as everybody else per hour and does it in a quarter of the time, are you spending more money? No. Right. The answer is no. And you're getting that higher bar. I always say it's 3 legs of the stool. Efficiency is one of them. Rate, efficiency, and the quality. So quality and rate go together, but it's that efficiency we look for too, so that someone can deliver it quicker, and you don't mind paying more per hour because you just know you're going to get it done right the first time, and it's amazing.
And the customers are relatively happy with it so far.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because you're building off your experience that you've had over the years.
That's right. Like I said, that's where it started. And, so Mojo Media Pros are my marketing agency, still around. We still do. I suppose the difference between the two is if you want a fully managed project, someone to take that on, that we run that through Mojo. But we even now do all of our talent acquisition through the roster. It's just one way to keep time, one way to invoice, et cetera, right? Makes sense. But I would just say that, you get people of that caliber, you bring them together, and great things happen.
Well, you're talking about what typical projects are you kind of getting? Is it, big productions?
We have one project right now working for a huge international company, which landed in our lap, doing a bunch of, training videos. We do websites. We just finished a beautiful website for a company. We do explainer videos. We do a lot of copywriting, a lot of ghostwriting. We have some of the best ghostwriters, who are writing for CEOs of major companies. Just there's a lot of great stuff, a lot of graphics, obviously,
It sounds like, so when you've had enough of Fiverr and Upwork and you just want to get the job done right.
Well, it's funny
it
you
may
say
cost
that.
you.
We have a client right now who said, like, he's a smart guy, and I don't want to embarrass him here, so I guess I'll leave his name out of it.
Sure,
Because,
that's
but
fine.
the thing is that he said, look, we've been using the commodity design services.
Right.
And he says, and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. The turnaround is not immediate, and if you don't know what you're going to get, you can say, okay, it's going to be 3 days. That's okay. But if it's 3 days and it's not even close to what you're expecting, and he said, so often I just end up rolling up my sleeves, and he thinks he's a B- designer. I think he's probably that good or better, but he knows great. He says he's not getting great, and if I'm the solution, then I'm not getting what I'm paying for.
Right.
So that's where he's wading in it. He's had to explain to his management. It's like, hey, this may look a little more expensive on the front end, but we won't be throwing stuff away. I mean, so much of what he got, he had to redo, and so that's a really good example. It's like, again, if you have the time and you have the experience, you can find great talent out there. I'm not saying that, but I think the level of consistency and consistent success is what we're helping, and ease. It's just so quick. You don't have to. People call in and we go, yeah, we got 3 people. Let me put a reel in front of you if it's that type of person, or at minimum a resume, and you see the brand logos that these people have been working with, and you go like, wow, these are people that have designed for Silicon Valley, all the best companies, the biggest brands. I mean, we try to, we have that high echelon, and then we try to find that up and coming, amazing younger talent that we mix into the teams. They learn off each other and they play.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, we've got talent here that is doing a lot of video work for us. That's just amazing work.
Right.
The other things you have to refine, like they're very young. Mm-hmm. They typically haven't had a real job yet. They have to learn how to be employed.
Right.
And meet deadlines and things of that nature. It's even though you're being allowed to work from home, it's like, hey, we still got customers that are wanting their stuff, so we got to turn around stuff. That's been a challenge for me, but we're working through it.
Yeah, in the '90s, I built a game studio that we built games for Panasonic, for Mattel, for Disney. We did work for Disney, and guess what? We built it on an island in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. People weren't going to commute to us. And so I built that with local talent. And a lot of that local talent was like in college, right out of high school, a couple of kids in high school. And we knit that team together. We're doing world-class work, because I kind of knew what we needed to do. And I feel like one of my strengths, a gift really, I think the gifts are the things you take for granted, right?
Right.
Yeah, everybody goes, hey, I can do that. No, not everybody can do that. You have an amazing gift for voiceover and business. I can see that. One of my gifts, I think, is recognizing talent and nurturing it,
right,
and putting teams together. I love that.
But also being able to sell the project.
Yeah, well, there's that. Yeah. I would say, I don't think
I've
ever eaten anything I didn't have to, shoot and kill myself. Right.
There's a lot of talent out there, creative talent especially. They don't consider themselves to be business people. That's why they rely on agents and stuff like that. Other people to get them the gig while they hone their craft, which is fine. But I've always been saying that, look, if you're getting into voiceover, you better learn how to sell and you better learn how to produce your own stuff. That's, I think, a very big requisite right now.
It is. That's just where it's all going. People have their own studios. It's convenient. It's more cost effective. It's interesting too. You touched on it and just made me think of this. So, our business model is evolving. I just had this. This is a good idea. It's like, hey, let's jump in. I'd never been in the staffing business before.
Yeah.
My background's, film, television, marketing, game development, all this, but I have this penchant for finding and working with talent. So I found myself like onboarding talent for Mojo that, I frankly, maybe I'll need that someday, but if this is an amazing person, well, then you start feeling guilty. Like, I don't want to waste people's time. So one of the things we've done with the roster, streamline that, make that super easy, and then really work hard to promote the talent. And, and we're getting there. We got a ways to go. There's no doubt. But, it's just exciting. And so there's two things I've heard, one's from the talent side and one from the client side. Clients go, it's like, oh, you actually know these people.
Yeah.
Like they're surprised. And I go like, don't back to the comment about a gift. You take it for granted. I took that for granted, but it resonates. Like, clients are going, oh, you actually know these people? In this SaaS world we live in, right, where it's all like autonomous. And then on the talent side, they go, what I love about this is that the rates are set, the projects, everything's locked, contracts are done. All I do is show up and let's talk about the project.
Right.
And they just step in. And you mentioned that, creative talent, just because they're creative doesn't mean they're good at organizing creativity or managing, the business side of it.
Yeah.
And we do that.
So with Mojo Media, is that kind of the feeder?
So there's another Mojo Media, so I want to be careful. Mojo Media Pros is my company, and the other, shout out to the other Mojo. But Mojo Media Pros is my company. And what was the question? I'm sorry.
Just does it feed into everything with the roster? Roster is like your resource.
That's right.
Mojo is your attractant. So Mojo, we can produce radio spots, television spots, long form, short form.
They play off each other quite well, which I almost didn't think that through at the beginning. It wasn't, but
I'm seeing it from here.
I'm starting to realize, how well that works. But so, like, if somebody, look, we just want to plug in resources, we're going to manage them.
Yeah,
that's really the roster.
Right.
In some cases, we put together self-managing teams. Like, we had a big project for UX design. It was like, I don't know, over 6 months. And it was a team of 9 people. There was, a couple of BAs, 3 UI designers, UX designers, and then we, the project management to go around that. And they kind of ran the team with the client as the product owner. And so the product owner was making all the decisions, but they just said, okay, great, we're here next meeting. This is what we'll get done. We'll meet on Tuesday. We'll present the deliverable. So it was a self-managed team. And all the product owner had to do is show up, make decisions, and start getting great stuff. By the way, that company it was, we helped them to build that app. Mm-hmm. That company was acquired based on the quality of that app. So this is back to the quality piece. So, they invested in that, and it ultimately allowed them to be acquired.
Well, very cool.
Yeah.
With marketing side of things, how have you seen that paradigm shift over the past 20 years? Me being in radio.
It's crazy.
When I came out of radio was still, it was a hot commodity, but the descent has already begun when I got out. Mm-hmm. Right now, a lot of people are like, somebody posted on Facebook, well, who listens to, they listed off 2 radio stations, and the comments are like, who? Or they kind of did a poll or something like that. And I found it curious that a lot of people were like, yeah, we just, people are listening to podcasts and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. What have you seen change? Where, what has your shifted focus been since, I don't know, the course over 15, 20 years?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind as I say this, and probably not the thing that I should be admitting as a marketer, it's overwhelming. Yeah. All the things you're supposed to be on top of, right? I mean, your social media and the SEO and lead gen and, all this stuff. And all the SaaS companies and everybody who's involved in all this, just treat it as if, well, of course, it's just all going to happen. It's a lot to manage, and it's a lot to take in. And for the average business owner, it's overwhelming. And to be honest, it's hard for most agencies and for most companies to justify the return on investment. To nail those things down. And but
it's so important.
It is, you just got to get the basics right early and build slowly. I mean, everybody wants to hit the ground running and just blow up, but that doesn't give you any opportunity to grow. The best quote I heard about this, and it was from my friend Anna Grimes, and also a client, and she said, and it's been in marketing forever, so shout out to Anna, but she said, I'd never heard it said this way, but it makes all the sense in the world. Marketing is an asset whose value increases over time.
Right.
And maybe you've heard that before. I hadn't. And
it sounds familiar.
Yeah, it sinks in. You go like, because there's lots of ways of saying that, but that's very succinct. The idea is you keep building on it. You keep building on it, and you start realizing, people are starting to pay attention. I'm starting to, my client base, my audience is starting to understand. But if you're not clear about what you're talking about or want to talk about or who you're addressing, and it's easy to get ahead of that because us creative people, we all want to jump out ahead of it. So even myself, I'm constantly trying to get back to that. Am I on target? Am I talking to the right people? Is this the right message? Is there a product market fit? That's one thing alone. derails 90% of the businesses that fail. It's like a bright idea with but no one's ready to buy it.
Are you familiar with the Wizard Academy, Wizard of Ads?
I'm not, actually.
Ooh, really?
Oh.
He's got a podcast called The Monday Morning Memo, and every Monday morning he's there. It started back in the late 90s. The books were a trilogy of books called The Wizard of Ads, and they came out again in the late 90s. He started one of the first email subscription campaigns that we know of, and that was called The Monday Morning Memo. And in it, he always had a recorded audio piece of it. He's also got little, what he calls rabbit holes. So if he talks about a topic, he'll give you the reference and stuff like that, and you can click on the link and
love it.
Go off in different rabbit holes. But he was mainly, he teaches like, he calls it a 21st century business school in Austin, Texas. It's called the Wizard Academy. His name, I keep on talking about him without actually saying his name, Roy H. Williams.
Roy H. Williams.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Very prolific, very cerebral stuff that they're coming out with down there.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I read voraciously marketing stuff, and I'm all over it. But there's a lot of great folks out there too.
And it's his whole thing is like, even though they really harp on radio and mass media because that seems to be his biggest revenue stream. To me, it's always the medium is the medium is the medium. What is it that you're saying?
Right.
Now, even who you're saying it to, because a lot of people talk, his whole thing is like, look, a lot of people like targeted advertising. He says, but think of who you're leaving out. Somebody that you advertise to, it might be a secretary of a decision maker or an executive assistant. She might hear something and say, oh my gosh, this is perfect, even though it's not directed to her.
Yeah, I kind of think about that in terms of networking too.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's no such thing as meeting a person that isn't worth meeting.
Right.
It sounds obvious, but when I'm going to networking events, I don't ever go there with the assumption I'm going to come away with 3 sales. I mean, that's silly.
No.
I would like to come away with 3 relationships or the start of 3 relationships and invest in those. See what you can do to help them. I heard you mention BNI once. Years ago, I was in BNI. One of the takeaways there, I always love their line, givers gain.
Yeah.
Right? The idea that if you can give to people, so I try to invest, and Amanda, we mentioned Amanda Banks earlier, is very much like this.
She is totally like
she
that.
She just constantly is like
connecting people
and just trying to add value. And I do think that pays off. But, she has tremendous respect from her network because they know that, she invests in them and then likewise they invest in her. So I think that's a huge point. I remember getting into a bit of I don't do this often, but an online, argument, whatever. Back and forth with somebody. And it was civil, but, their whole point was, in a blog post was like, hey, essentially don't waste my time unless you have a reason to talk to me.
Yeah.
In other words, like, unless there's a business reason to talk, don't waste my time. That attitude, just turns me off. It's like, I can't tell you how many people like, years ago, I don't know if you may remember her now, but Linda Wyman, lynda.com, it's like, which got purchased by LinkedIn Learning, and she and her husband were the founders and sole owners of that, when they sold that for whatever it was, 1.5 billion. But, she was a buddy of mine years and years and years ago. It was 20 years before we ever did any business together, but she was a buddy. We met at a trade show, we networked, saw at another trade show, and then you became part of a group of people who go out to dinner, et cetera. And then she started LinkedIn Learning or lynda.com and went on to become a gazillionaire and all that. But the point is that there was a relationship, and ultimately I did do some work for her. As a matter of fact, I think I hired her to do some work for me early on. But those things can pay off, but the big payoff was the relationship.
Yeah.
Not the work.
Well, that's a lot of people lose sight of. There's transactional people and relational people.
Yeah.
There's, I came across a lot of similar, 2 in particular, LinkedIn posts as of late. One from a voiceover person who said that, look, if you're hitting me up to pick my brain, she put that in quotes, just don't bother. Just keep on going. I've worked hard from the very beginning for over 5 years to get to where I am, yada, yada, and that kind of a post.
5 whole years?
5 whole years. Maybe it was a little longer than that. But anyway, 5 years I've been grinding, and, if you want to pick my brain, then you better be willing to pay me, that kind of thing. On the other side of that is a friend of mine who plays drums professionally here in town. He's made an amazing career out of it. He's in demand. It's not about who he knows. It's about, at this point, who knows him. So he certainly flipped that head. But he's always done it by just taking people, up on coffee and stuff like that.
Right.
He says, anybody wants to come to town and pick my brain and let's get a coffee. I typically end up paying for the coffee anyway. His philosophy is that I want to be remembered for a good thing.
Yeah.
And all these people, if they move in, they are able to kind of make a living and a career out of what they want to do. Hopefully they'll remember me, and they're all going to want to move up.
Yeah, in Hollywood, there's a saying when I started in Hollywood, doing work in television and whatnot. And there was this saying, like, be nice to the little people on your way up because you're going to meet them all again on your way back down.
Yeah.
And, that's mostly focused at talent, right? But it's true. It's so true.
Right.
And about coffee, one of the things I love about Nashville, and you can put this to the test. And I heard it and I started doing it. You can pretty much invite anybody in this town at any level of any company and government and say, hey, I'd love to have a cup of coffee and just kind of get to know you, tell what I'm doing and get your, take on it.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, you're going to get, sure, no problem.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
No other towns like that.
No matter. You could probably do that with the governor.
I think you can. Well, okay. So
to a certain extent.
I've been in the governor's presence, every governor since I've been here 20 times each, but they are on the ground, they're at events, they're present. Whereas when growing up in California, of course, I wasn't in Sacramento, but nonetheless, the government was, even the mayor of Los Angeles, it wasn't somebody you would bump into anywhere, it seemed like. So maybe I just wasn't traveling the right circles, but I'm not trying to travel in any different circles here.
Right.
They just seem to be more involved with the local businesses.
Well, I mean, that's the element of asking. One of the things I teach my kids all the time, sometimes to my detriment, is the answer to an unasked question is going to be no. Okay, that's right. Or you're just not going to know it. So ask the question. You might as well just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things that you kind of look into. How many people that I get on the microphone? Every podcast episode that I try to remember to do this is, I feel like Dennis. Old man brain. I almost said Dennis Quaid, but that's my old boss.
Dennis Quaid?
Dennis Quaid.
Thank
you.
I get one for Steve.
Gosh. Major, that just blows it out of the water, right? I can't even remember the guy's name. But I've always felt like every movie I've seen him, and I always felt like a connection. Yeah. Right? And it's not a weird thing. It's not like it's a crush or anything like that. I just have this notion that I've always felt like I was going to meet him. He'd be sitting in this chair right in front of me, and we'd have an amazing conversation.
I just watched a movie called The Hill with him in it. It was really good.
Was it good?
Oh, gosh,
I've been seeing it advertised.
Yeah, it's worth seeing.
But it's how many premonitions have I had like that have come to fruition? It's amazing how many times it's happened.
Yeah.
And I always felt, just with him, think of all the actors we have in this town. Musicians. I've reached out to, A-class or, A-lister musicians and actors and stuff like that. I know I'm probably not going to get a response back, but I feel like that's going to happen. And so I bring it up on the episodes when I think to. You never know if my guest might know the guy. The last time I actually had somebody on, he actually knew somebody that would know him.
Oh, that's interesting.
You just never know.
I don't know that I do, but I wouldn't be surprised if I do. And right. Just that power of, within 3 hops.
So many degrees.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
And it's like, when you have the attitude of transactionality or what's in it for me, I've worked so hard to get here, that kind of thing. You're basically signaling to the other person, even the people who had the audacity to put it on LinkedIn. Okay, you're telling me that you're just a jerk then. That's what you're signaling.
That's
I
that's
get
kind
what
of how
you're
I
saying.
felt about that. Yeah, on that particular thing. And by the way, the guy's not a jerk. I know him, but I surprised me that he took that stand publicly.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt comfortable saying, really, I have just the opposite. I want to meet because we just talked about this. The degrees of separation between you tap into a different network. Amanda and I just had this conversation this week. I said, a lot of the people I know, but I don't seem to know anybody that you know. She goes, well, that's the value of, blending our networks, right?
Right.
And I said, yeah, I get that. So when you meet somebody new, earlier you said, well, it might be, a secretary or doesn't matter.
Right.
Their brother-in-law could be running the whole thing. It's a funny thing. We have a contractor on in our neighborhood installing some electrical stuff for us. And somebody said, who his wife is? No. Well, it turns out his wife is, been all over the news, is the one who's like the swimmer who's been taking a stand on, gender for,
Really?
in sports. And I'm going like, who would have known? You would know. It's like
Riley Gaines?
Yes.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah.
And her name I remember.
Yeah, thank you. And I couldn't have come up with that. But her husband's the contractor working in our neighborhood.
Wow.
And I love that. Have you ever had the thought like, 10 people are sitting in an airport that you don't know each other and you have no idea that you all might know somebody or you all might have been, fun story, true story. As a kid, I was backpacking around Europe. Like 3 or 4 years after that, I was in San Francisco. And I think it was just because a guy was sitting outside at a coffee shop, and it kind of reminded me of the Outdoor Bistro. I looked at the guy, and I said, this is a really weird question. Were you in Paris like 4 years ago sitting at, and he goes, yes. I go, yeah, I remember you. He goes, that's weird. And I go, it's just like a deja vu moment. But so those serendipity
I saw you on
things.
camera.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, my point is that you never know who you're going to meet that can change the course of your life.
It's so true.
Yeah.
One person
can
be a sweeping change.
That's it. So I, wake up every day, being excited to go like, who's that person today? Or what's that opportunity today?
Yeah.
And just, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen every day, but every day's new.
Absolutely. You got a possibility and it's like, your at-bats get reset.
That's right. Yeah. So that's how Amanda and I met. It was a networking thing, and I was standing there, she said, she goes, I think she, stretching the truth. Oh, that guy looks kind of cool, so she walked up and started talking. And I go, I don't even remember how we met. I had to ask her the other day. This was like, 10 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So.
Quite a while then.
It's been a while, yeah.
What was your TEDx talk about?
I didn't do a TEDx talk. I was...
you were participated, okay.
Yeah, I was part of the committee for TEDx Old Hickory, so the steering committee, and I was in charge of production. So with a lot of help, by the way, if anybody's listening. So, that worked out really, really well.
The funny thing is that with that kind of a beacon... with her being in charge of TEDx Old Hickory, she gets blown up all the time. Everybody wants to speak. Yep. They all want that feather in their cap. Same thing's got to be with you. I mean, owning basically a talent agency.
Yeah, it's funny. I just did a blog post series from layoff to launch, and it's all about how to get a W-2 job, basically.
Right.
And it's not the end-all, be-all. It's just lots of great tips, right? And you go, well, why would you do that? You have a staffing. Well, I'll tell you why. A lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people have been laid off in the last, year and a half, 2 years. And not all here, but all over the country. And they're either trying to reinvent themselves or get a job. So I kind of talk about both sides of that. And the emotional part of that. My career has been a checkerboard of starting companies and then getting hired away by a company, a client to work for them, and then realizing after a few years that wasn't right, starting another company, back and forth my whole career. My wife would say she's got the scars to prove it,
Yeah.
And but I just realized that. So I've been through layoffs, is I guess where I'm going with that. So I understand that, when you have a W-2 job and somebody pulls the rug out from under you, it is a big drop. It's a big deal, right? Yeah. Because your whole, jobs are not just about income. That's a big part of it, but it's, prestige or how you see yourself in the world and routine.
Yeah.
Take away routine and you're in free fall.
Yeah.
So that blog series was written for people who are looking for W-2. I respect that. That's not what we do. We're full time, 100% freelance, 100% remote. But I was fielding enough calls from people in that boat, the in-betweeners, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Hey, maybe I should freelance while I'm trying to find a full-time job.
Yeah.
Ask me to put a lot of effort into getting you, promoting you just so you can go take a full-time job. Not my best interest, but I always take those calls and I always try to be helpful. And I realized I was sharing a lot of advice over and over again. I thought, let's get this into something where people can
It's an opportunity for somebody else to get to know you and how you work.
That's
and
it.
how you conduct yourself with people.
That's it.
And a lot of people don't look at that. I get hit up, like I said, I want to pick your brain about voiceover. Okay, we'll get on a call for 10, 15 minutes and I'll tell you everything you need to know. I'll shoot straight with you. And everybody tells me I have a good voice. That's great.
Have you ever noticed this? And I learned this early in my career. It's like, well, I came up with this really cool technique in the early days of computer graphics. I can make that part of my secret sauce and, hoard it. Or I could go to a conference, tell everybody how to do it.
Right.
What I realized was like, well, do that, of course. You might as well get credit for it. The people who are smart enough to understand what you're doing are going to figure it out anyway.
Right.
And 99% of the people in the world just won't, bend over and pick up the information and use it.
Right.
They hear it, they go, that's cool, but they just don't take action.
Right. People with scarcity mindsets.
Yeah. So so you can give it away all you want. You might as well get credit for, if it is a clever idea or an interesting process or whatever it is, you might as well get credit for it. And you can still use it, and it's still a competitive advantage.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Well, how can people find and follow you, man? It's mojomediapros.com.
That's my agency. Yep.
Right.
And then theroster.agency, not .com, .agency. And there's 2 links on there: find work, find talent. And we will put together, if you're a company or a startup looking to just get that marketing team off the ground without having to have a bunch of W-2 hires, that we can help you with that.
You are the Ari Gold of creative talent here in Nashville.
Well, thank you very much for that.
Yeah. That's funny because that's the same kind of conversation I had with a guy back in 2016. He was in the IT world, and I'm pretty sure he still is. Bill Qualia, we're talking about you, pal. And for the longest time, because I was in a job that required me to have a little bit of a knowledge of IT and telephony and VoIP and all that stuff. And I met this guy, and we kind of hit it off. And he told me everything he did, and I'm going, I have no idea what the hell you do. And I brought him to where I worked, and I said, maybe you guys will have an idea of what he does. And we sat with the guy for 45 minutes. And he leaves, and I said, so? They're like, we have no idea.
Oh, wow.
I said, okay. Fast forward 6 months, I see him at a mixer. He says, hey, I was doing these videos at the time that did, I called them VidSigs. They were white background videos, unscripted, unposed, very simple to the point, but very humanizing at the same time. And he saw a couple that I did. He says, I want to do one. And I said, okay. I shoot him in my house in the front room. He says, that's okay. Just, look at my website. And you'll figure out what all the questions ask. And I'm going, all right, cool. So he comes over. Hey, did you look at my website? I said, I did. He goes, do you, I said, no idea what you do, buddy. It's really lost on me. I need you to talk to me like I'm 6 and tell me what it is that you do. So he goes, that's been the toughest thing.
It is the hardest thing.
And I said, look, okay, describe it to me. What is the gist of you do? Forget about the sky talk, 50,000 foot type of approach. What is it? He tells me in very simplest terms. I'm like, dude, you're an agent that knows all really good people that are talented or are the best in their, the best low voltage wiring guy, the best network specialist, the best VoIP people. That you know all these people. You're an agency.
Right.
You're like the Ari Gold of IT here in Nashville. He goes, who's Ari Gold? I said, watch Entourage. And he goes, okay. And he actually went with that moniker. And he says, I thank you. Because I can now describe myself a lot more succinctly.
Just having that way to do that is huge. I first heard it from David C. Baker, then I heard Donald Miller say it as well. When we talk about our own businesses, it's like we're stuck inside the jar and we can't read the label.
You can't read that. I say that all the time.
Yeah.
Well, very good, man. It's been wonderful having you on.
Hey, thank you. I enjoyed it. It's
watching or listening, make sure you check out mojomediapros.com and theroster.agency.
That's it.
Make sure those will be in the description as well. Check those out, please. That would be wonderful. And I always talk about the BHAG of the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, where we're looking for 10,000 average downloads per episode. That would be wonderful, but we're a long way off. The way we get there is by reviewing, subscribing, rating, sharing with your friends. If there's something here that's resonated with you, let us know. Everything's right there at MMTBP.com. If you really want to put in the entire thing, mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast.com. But that's a mouthful. So I went with the truncated version of MMTBP.com. Steve, thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you for having me.